If you fail to see or fail to admit that the enemy is coming after you or has some hold on you, and you don't take the power that is yours in Jesus Christ and remove that off of you, then you will remain a slave to that. People are forgiven, but they're not free. They're saved, but they're not released.
Okay. My life was pretty ordinary. We lived in Madison. Got a great house, great job, wife, 2 children, attended Pinelake regularly. I was a deacon at the church, and it's where I always dreamed that I would be one day. So I guess life sort of fell into a little bit of monotony. I just began to feel a dissatisfaction that I couldn't really put a finger on it. This led to me believing lies from the enemy. Some of the lies that I believed and nurtured was that there's much more out there for you. There's a different kind of happiness. And I nurtured those lies and gave in to temptation. I began a long-term affair with another woman.
There was a disconnect in our marriage, for sure. I was just praying for healing. I was praying for restoration. I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea, this other life that Mack was living. And I didn't know how to pray because I didn't know what was going on. I knew that he was not sleeping. He was very distant.
In this journey, there was a time where all the things that I was living in the darkness came to light. And Melissa found out everything that had been going on. Melissa and I separated shortly after that, and I continued to live this adulterous affair even after that.
When I first found out about Mack's affair, I knew that it was a spiritual battle. I saw a darkness in him. I went to God. I fell on my knees, face first. I listened to worship music, and I just cried flat out on the floor, just praying at first for our marriage. Over time, my prayers changed, and, I just felt that the Lord was prompting me not just to pray for our marriage, but to pray for Mack. Every single day, every moment of every day, I just prayed for his brokenness because I knew that I didn't want our marriage to be fixed if his heart wasn't right. And I knew that if God restored his life, then our marriage and our family and everything else would fall in line. I felt a lot of anger sometimes, just unbelief in that, a lot of anger, of course, towards Mack, but I also had just a peace from the Lord. And for a long time, the Lord was just telling me just to stand firm, and that's what I did.
All along, Melissa never stopped praying for me, and she never gave up on me. She prayed that I would be able to let go of this temptation that I had given into. She prayed that I would run from it. She prayed that I would remember all of God's promises. So on Sunday, July the 9th, I had started going back to Pinelake, Madison with Melissa, and she and I are sitting there in the service. There was a guest pastor, Alex Amaya. Really, he talked about how God's people are forgiven but not set free. And all through that sermon, I just felt God stirring in my heart, and everything that he was saying, I took it in. At the end of the sermon, Alex Amaya asked everyone if they had anything that was binding them to stand up so that he could pray a prayer over them. I knew that prayer was for me that day.
In the name of Jesus Christ, we command all spirits of sexual immorality to leave and get off the purity that belongs to Jesus Christ. Every spirit of sexual impurity, adultery, lust, pornography, fornication, every form of sexual immorality, you must go in the name of Jesus Christ.
And at that moment, I felt an immediate change within me. Monday morning, after that prayer that was prayed over me, the adulterous affair that I was having came to a crashing end. 2 days after that prayer, I was out of town in a hotel for work, and lying there in the dark, alone, I looked up and I saw a movement in the room. Right after that movement, I felt like there was a darkness that had left. I felt a deliverance, and the chains were broken at that point. I felt an overwhelming peace, and I began to feel all these affectionate feelings for Melissa that I had not felt in a long, long time. I began to see all the love she had for me from the very beginning. I began to see that she was the truth in all of this, and all the lies that I had believed in and that I had nurtured, they weren't real, and she was real. I felt so much love for her in that moment. I accepted responsibility for everything that I had done, whereas before I had wanted to push blame and find other ways to blame people. Melissa and I began a road of reconciliation. She had never stopped praying for me. She had never given up on me. And now our path was going down a road that she had been praying for all along.
Through all of this, I realized how real the enemy is, but more importantly, how big God is and how powerful God is and how real God is.
We know what the enemies are capable of, but more importantly, we know what God's capable of.